Hello, Game Day. Welcome, everybody. We've got such an exciting episode today, especially for me, a Brisbane Lions supporter. We've got Alan Christensen on the show today, and he's actually got his own podcast called Addicted to the Game. So make sure you guys get over to him, subscribe to him on Instagram, and he'll be on all the audio platforms as well. And also, of course, subscribe to Hello Game Day wherever you're listening, guys. So, Poncho, give Alan the pump up that he deserves, mate.
Absolutely. So he's a Geelong Falcons boy from the TAC Cup, drafted pick 40 in the 2009 national draft to the Geelong Cats, where he became a premiership player just over 2 years later. At the end of 2014, he traded in the cold weather for the warmth, moving up to Queensland with the Brisbane Lions, where he played a further 5 years, accumulating 133 games over his 10-year career. Christensen, please give us a big Hello Game Day.
Hello Game Day. How you going, boys?
We love it.
Excellent, mate. Should I kick things off then, Ponch?
Yeah, go for it, Moosey. Give him the rub down that he deserves.
I'm going to start it off by asking about your nickname. Where did Bundy come from?
I wish I had something better for you, boys. I wish I was, got too pissed on Bundy Run one day or something like that. And but no, it's nothing. It's nothing like that. It's an old show called Married with Children, and the main character's name's Al Bundy, and obviously with my name being Alan, short Al to Al Bundy, and Bundy stuck since I was probably about 18 months of age. So even my mum calls me Bundy, which is a bit weird at times, but I know where I'm in trouble.
So do I, man. My mum speaks Italian to me when I'm in trouble. It's a bit worse. Now, we've got it. I was going to ask you if you had any other nicknames. I don't have any intel, but do you have any other nicknames?
Nah. Matty Scarlett, when I first got to the Cats, used to like Christo, obviously, and I hate being called Christo because that's what my dad, everyone calls me dad. And when I first got to the Cats, I remember him running around and he goes, Christo. I'm like, I hate this so much, but I'm an 18-year-old kid. I'm not telling Matt Scarlett to stop calling me that. So, it's, other than that, there's, not a lot.
And if you did try and tell him to stop it, then everyone would start calling you it for the rest of your career.
I wasn't running that risk.
Now, speaking of you being an 18-year-old kid, word is that when you got to draft camp, your skin folds had you at about a morbidly obese level. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I hadn't seen a gym yet. I wasn't really that well prepared. I actually have a nice little story for you boys a bit for draft camp. I won't name the coach. He doesn't coach anymore, but he actually walked over to me and he lifted my shirt up and had a look at my guts and he goes, "Oh, not as bad as I thought it was going to be," and walked off. I was like, "Oh, gee whiz."
Name, please.
I just don't think that flies anymore, though. So.
No, it definitely doesn't.
That's fair enough. That's an absolute pearler. Now, another one, and this has been sent in from an old teammate, and it's been alleged that when being asked by one of the players how it felt to win the flag on the bus ride home after winning the grand final, he said, "Honestly, being nominated for Rising Star felt better."
I don't know who said that, but no, I can't recall. I can't recall that one. Whoever sent that in, it's a good one, though.
Yeah, I knew as soon as I read it, it was absolutely full of mayo, but I just thought I'd throw it in anyway.
No, absolutely not true. That sort of feeling. Did play well in NAB Rising Star game, though. I'll give you that one.
Absolutely. And another one with the draft year. Now, in your draft year, you were predicted to go about top 15, top 20, and you ended up sliding back to about 40. And reports had it, you had a couple of nervous drinks throughout the night until you got drafted. And then after you got drafted, it was party time in Lara. And I've been told to ask how the night actually went for you.
Yeah, I don't remember. Don't remember it one bit. I do remember it. I got a bit carried away, and somehow in the house there was a bottle of absinthe. And as an 18-year-old kid, doing shots of that's never going to end well. But we had a good night for sure.
And then the follow-up after getting drafted, it was a quick turnaround for when you started training at the football club. So how'd you go on your first day?
Wasn't too bad. After draft camp, I sort of knuckled down a bit. I lost 7 or 8 kilos. Probably got way too skinny. Sort of got to work a little bit was going to my uncle's a police officer, and we'd go and do stuff with him, with other police officers trying to get fit. So I wasn't great, but I was better than what I was.
Yeah. And is there any truth that on the first day you actually had to excuse yourself from the group to go and throw up? Or is that a bit of mayo too?
Absolute mayo. Not whoever is feeding you these stories is, I don't know.
We've been absolutely stitched up here because I thought maybe that could have been true, but that would have been the longest hangover ever.
Nah, I don't recall that because I remember first day we got pulled away from the group and we were just doing, some basic laps and stuff like that. So it wasn't too hard our first day for sure.
Well, there you go. Those are all the stitch-ups we had, and I feel like if anything, we've been stitched up just as much as you have. But
there's some better stories out there, fellas. I can guarantee
that.
Next time.
I reckon we weren't too far from getting them. So I'll move into some more footy-based stuff. And I read that you grew up in and around Geelong in your earlier years. And it was interesting to learn that you moved up to Darwin for 2 years because your father took the head coaching role at the Powerhouse Club in St. Mary's. So what was that experience like moving up north?
Yeah, it was good. It was pretty interesting for me and my family because I'd move up and then I'd come back for the school term and then go back. And being, I think it was an Olympics year, 2004, I think. Yeah, so in 2005, that first year, there was extended holidays and stuff. So I was spending, half the year in Darwin, half the year back in Geelong going to school, being in year 7. So it was, a bit crazy, bit different, but it's something that, I look back on pretty fondly now, and I can sort of heading into the next phase of my life. Like I'm heading up there this weekend to play NTFL footy, so which is pretty exciting.
Unreal, because that was my follow-up question. Would you ever give it a run post-season? It seems like you're probably going to go back to St. Mary's, are you saying?
Nah, I'm going to actually play for the Tiwi Bombers. That's where all my family's from. So I'm actually, lacing up the boots this weekend and having a run around, which will be pretty fun, I reckon.
How exciting is that? Well, that's an exclusive for our podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
After being drafted, you sort of had a development year in the VFL due to Geelong being an incredibly hard team to break into in 2010. The next year, you find yourself as a regular in the lineup in your second season, which inevitably leads to a premiership by the end of 2011. So can you talk us through your grand final experience and what it all means to you to win a flag with Geelong, especially growing up as a local?
Yeah, it was a bit of a different year because, the sub had been brought in. So debuted as a sub, played 5 of my first 6 games as a sub. And I got dropped and couldn't get back into the side. Obviously, we were pretty handy. And then it wasn't until around 13 or 14 I sort of got back into the side and sort of cemented myself after playing some good VFL footy. So, yeah, I was pretty confident heading into finals because you never know as I was a second year player. If you have a stinker in a prelim or something like that, you could be out of a team for a grand final day for some more experience. So it was I was more nervous for the prelim than I was the grand final. I distinctly remember that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I was absolutely shitting myself. In the prelim, because I just if I play bad today, I might be, and we win, I might be out of the side. And I think my first 2 or 3 touches, I got run down by Luke Shuey twice, and I kicked one out in the full. I'm like, oh no, here we go. But playing that grand final was, I've watched it back a couple of times, and being able to experience, the ultimate success so early on in my career, I was just, I'm taken aback by it now because after it, you're so busy trying to keep getting better, and as a player and as a team, it sort of gets left. But now that I've retired, I can sort of look back and go, oh, gee, I did have a couple of big moments in that game. I did, have an influence on the game. And as a 20-year-old in my 19th game, it's something that I'm extremely proud of, and something probably over the last 2 or so weeks I've been able to really look back on and look back fondly. And as a kid that grew up in Lara, 15 minutes down the road, it meant a lot to the town, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So you absolutely reached the pinnacle there. And following on, were there any noteworthy antics or best on performances in the carry-on after winning the flag or the Mad Monday following?
Not that I can remember. There's always this photo on Wikipedia. My Wikipedia photo was from the Sunday at the family day, and I hadn't slept, and I just don't know whoever put that wiki photo. I think it's been changed now, but whoever had that wiki photo, I'm like, these blokes are taking the piss. Whoever's put this up, I was carted standing up there on the stage. So, yeah, I don't know. That footy trip was pretty good. It was very high class. We went to Hong Kong, and it was, yeah, you think of footy trips and, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel sort of stuff, eating whatever you can get out of, pubs and, bars and whatever. We're having, dinner at 5-star restaurants and staying at like Shangri-La's, and yeah, it was crazy, but probably not great for, 25 blokes who just want a flag where, yeah, we might have done a little bit of damage to those hotels, unfortunately.
I could imagine it'd be rowdy, and deservedly so. And from someone looking from the outside in, it seems Geelong has such a strong culture, sort of matched to that of Sydney Swans, who are known for the Bloods culture. So I was hoping just to get like an insight into why the Cats have probably been the most successful team for the past 20 years, and the culture and what it means to put on the hoops.
Yeah, obviously, they've been such a great team for so long, and that sustained success doesn't come for no reason. I think, before my time, between like 2003 and to 2006, when they were sort of down the bottom, and then sort of became good with a really young side, they definitely learnt some lessons. So when us guys in the next generation came through, it was it was a completely different culture from some of the stories we heard about, just boys not acting like professionals. And unfortunately, that's just the way it was back then. But by the time I came through, it was, a really professional environment. The players we got to learn off, like I look at Brisbane and some of the guys they get to learn off now, like Zorko and Neil, and Cam Rayner gets to watch all these players. I growing up and I get Bartel, Enright, Joel Corey, Paul Chapman, Steve Johnson. It was mind blowing to be able to pick up little skills from all those players who are, as you said, like legends in the hoops and greats of the modern era game. It's pretty crazy, and I was very lucky to play for the oldest football club in the world.
Absolutely, and it seems like that's actually something that flows through. Like since you've been there, there's like you still look at the teams every year, and you're like they've got legend after legend after legend still playing up until now. And then moving forward to up until 2014, the 4 seasons that you've put on the park were extremely successful. And then unfortunately, back injuries hindered the amount of games you played during 2014 season. And then at the end of the season, you find yourself moving up to Brisbane Vegas to join the Lions. I couldn't find any reasoning for the trade, so I was curious as to how that all panned out with the big move up north.
Yeah, so I went in for my second back surgery, so I come back and played 10 games, and sort of we're getting ready for the finals, and I was I can't remember who we played in the second last game. I think it might have been Hawthorn, and I was driving back in the car, and my legs starting to go pretty numb, and I was like, this isn't right. And then the weeks after that, I was trying to get up for the finals. I think it was that finals we lost to North in a semi-final in 2014. So I just couldn't get up. I was trying to run laps, and I couldn't run. Like I just had no power in my legs, which was pretty scary for someone who's 23. Behind closed doors, I was battling a massive gambling addiction. So yeah, that went on the whole time I was at the Cats. It wasn't until sort of after they lost, I sort of got hit up for it by the club, saying, look, we know you owe money, we know this is happening, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So yeah, I just thought at the time, looking back on it now, it was quite a brash decision, but I just didn't believe I could still walk around Geelong and be around Geelong and beat my gambling addiction. So it was a decision I didn't take lightly. It was quick. I understood that, but it was the right one. And, I'm 6 years down the track and I haven't had a bet. And my life's got a lot better since I've got rid of the punt.
I actually had no idea that you ever went through that. Is that something that has been quite personal for you? Have you been pretty open about that?
No, I've been real open about that. So that's pretty much what my podcast is about. It's about talking to people about, their mental health battles and their addictions, drug, alcohol, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I guess doing that gives me a platform to talk about the stuff I've learnt, but also another chance for people to talk about, the stuff they've gone through.
I'd be keen to get into. Oh, go for it, Poncho. Go for it.
I was going to say, because 100%, I think Moose is going to follow up on that, and I think this is a really good topic to touch on. So I'll finish off with the last question that kind of relates. I think I was going to mention your brother, and me and him were in the same sort of draft year, and I've met him around playing. We played in the APS game together, and we were at the draft camp together, and we both did under 19 years in the TAC Cup, and I actually moved up to the Gold Coast in 2015 and saw him playing at Redlands. But for you, how important has he been for your transition? Because I noticed that he moved up the same time that you moved up to Queensland, and I assume that he would have been a bit of an anchor through a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It was it was a hard call for him to leave, Geelong as well. But I feel like he thought he needed to support me, and I did need the support. So I'm forever going to be appreciative of this decision that him and his partner made to come up and support us. And yeah, it's been great having him up here, and he's played some good footy up here in the NEFL. And actually, we live together now, so which is quite good. It's pretty funny, but yeah, he's a bit of a character, and I don't think he's ever let that down, to be honest, that he didn't get drafted. So yeah, still carries it around with him.
Well, so does Ponch.
Yeah. Every podcast I'll bring up how it's bullshit.
I thought I was stiff too, but I stopped playing footy when I was 15. So now, Bundy, you mentioned before about gambling. I was really keen to actually go into that more with you. How did that sort of start? Is it something that gradually works up, or did you find that you had an inclination towards gambling from a young age? Or
no, it was definitely a young age. My family owned horses. I was just always around it, that sort of thing. So gambling was sort of like pretty much Australian culture. Like gambling's just instilled in a lot of friendship groups and a lot of families, and that's just the way it works here. Probably when I went to school, my group of friends, we all liked the same thing. We all loved the horses. So 15, 16, we'll get in the form guide out of the staff room to try and pick. We used to do so much stupid shit, but like trying to we'd put in 50 cents each, like 10 of us, like try and put on like a $5 trifecta to try and turn that into something so we could have a bet the next day. And we used to hit up like year 12 guys to go put these bets on for us at lunchtime. And yeah, at that stage, it was just, I don't know, us just, trying to look cool. I don't know. We used to keep a book and stuff like that. And yeah, but then probably when I got drafted, you start get paid a bit more, you have a lot more downtime than, probably people think that, during the week, there's a lot of downtime. So like Wednesdays would be a day off, and on Wednesdays, it's like the second metro meet of the week. So, I sort of started really, really watching the horses. I started buying into horses that, I couldn't really afford unless I was winning big on the punt. So, it sort of became the fuel for everything. But yeah, I sort of lost control probably when I was, 21. So yeah, 2012, 2013, when I started getting injured. And I've got the betting slips and all the accounts from my betting companies, and it's a clear correlation. The more I was injured, the more I was betting. And there was a couple of months there where I was spending over, putting through the account over $100,000. So it was pretty full on.
Wow. And when you say putting through over $100,000, is that like in incremental bets, or are you sometimes just going for broke and putting through thousands at a time?
No, I was if I was winning, I was putting in 15,000 on a horse that I'd never really seen before. I was just that I was just chasing the thrill. And it's the same for like drug addicts and people with alcohol. They're chasing a feeling. I was chasing that, that winning feeling. The thing I've worked out with dealing with other people who've had issues with gambling is that you can quickly pretty much forget about it. So every day, if I'd lost 15 grand or 20 grand the day before, I'd wake up and say, all right, I'm at zero today. And if you can win 15,000 today, then yesterday didn't matter. So yeah, it was a pretty bad mindset to have, obviously.
And when you said you saw the slips and everything, does that mean that you can see the exact discrepancy between how much you've won and how much you've lost in those times?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I lost close to 300,000. Yeah. So,
holy shit!
And I wasn't on like huge amounts of money. So yeah, it was just it was the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, I was just so hooked, and I was just so ingrained in the horse racing atmosphere, and I wanted to be around it and everything. Footy was pretty much just a vehicle to pay for my gambling at the end of the day, which was quite scary.
Wow, man. Well, good on you for overcoming that, man, and for talking about it as well, because I think that you'll know when I say the problem is I've got mates who have gambling addictions and who have overcome them and who are still trying to overcome them. And the problem is one that we kind of sweep under the rug a little bit because we're so bombarded by the money-making machine that is gambling companies so often. So,
no, absolutely. Yeah, that's why we do our podcast, because we want to keep calling these gambling companies out, because it's creating an environment where kids think gambling's normal and it's fun and you can't lose, and it can be fun. Like, we're not anti-gambling at all. It's I know gambling, like going to the races, can be fun. I know hanging out with the mates at the pub and you have a little punters club and stuff like that. Like, that's fun. Like, there's no issues with that. It's just when sports bet are putting up ads that don't even relate to gambling, kids automatically go, oh, that looks fun. Like, I can't lose. I can't, it's getting normalized when, gambling should be a part-time thing and it should be a bit of fun with your friends.
right. So you're sort of more like seeing like the the marketing techniques and the psychological effects and all of that sort of stuff. From you're seeing like the psychological tactics and stuff that they're imposing on their gambling advertisements. Who have we got there?
That's Aaron.
Aaron.
Hey. Sorry, man. So the psychological effects and the marketing techniques that they're putting on these adverts and everything, you're looking at those and you're thinking like that's something that maybe needs to be tempered.
Yeah, absolutely. And the times it should be allowed to happen and all that. So yeah, we watch it pretty closely. We started working with some people, pretty high up at government level and stuff like that to sort of, it's, I'm not the smartest bloke going around. I'm dealing with some people who, doctors in, social studies and stuff like that. And yeah, it's interesting because they're so like book smart, and then they come to people like me who's been through it and work out how I've been affected from it. And you work in tandem with each other and try and create like strategies where one day we can go to the government and say, look, this needs to change because this, and this. So hopefully that's not too far away, because we get people on Twitter and stuff like that saying that my kid keeps saying, long may we play, which is the TAB anthem thing, the slogan they got at the moment. And kids calling their teddies Neds because stuff like that. I'm like, that is just mind-blowing. And like, because they're seeing it on jumpers, they're seeing it being pumped out on TV, and they're naming their teddies Ned. Like, it's crazy.
It's freakish to think. Yeah, go on.
Well, I was going to say, did you ever feel afflicted then? Because Brisbane is sponsored by Neds. So did you ever have like a conversation about that?
Yeah, I'm now that I'm done, and what is it, the 2nd of November? So I'm out of I'm officially done today.
Yeah. So here comes the scoop.
No, I did have a conversation with them absolutely about it. I wasn't happy about it. I won't pretend like I was happy about it, because it was hard to run around and Probably a good thing I didn't play this year at all. But it was hard to run around having that, broadcast, especially when we were getting good as well. So we're starting to play finals and stuff like that. And, I kind of look back on it now and it's kind of embarrassing, like seeing that on my jumper, like celebrating goals. I wish I said more about it, but at the end of the day, like I couldn't have said much, or, I'm costing the club like probably millions of dollars. I don't know. But when they signed on, I said, like, you realize, what I've been through. And they said, we didn't have a lot of money at that stage. So sort of take what you can get sort of stuff. And I understood that. But hopefully in the future, now that, we're playing off in prelims and hopefully not too far off a grand final, some sponsors can jump off and knock that stupid little orange brick off that jumper.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Because I think that, like, I would completely agree with that there's a time and a place, and you have to really look at the demographics in terms of who's seeing these things and how it's being advertised. Like, long may we play is, it's different to the actual, what you actually might be doing. So I can understand that. And from looking at your podcast as well, man, I saw that you actually were posting some things about gambling advertisement, and it makes sense now why you were doing that. And now the other thing that you're really sort of you speak about a lot is your Indigenous heritage and what that means to you, and also talking about some of the issues that the Indigenous community are facing. So did you want to maybe speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's just I guess growing up, I didn't grow up on land. Like, my mum's from Tiwi Islands, grew up in Darwin, and then when Dad coached up at St Mary's, they met and then moved back down to Geelong. So I was always away from my Indigenous family, and my mum made it really clear to me and made sure I was really highly educated in where I was from, and taught me as much as she could without me actually being there. I guess going through my career, I had some really good role models like Nathan Chakura, Stokesy, Travis Varco, guys I could really look up to and really strong in their opinions and what they thought, and where the Cats could get better. And I was really lucky to be a part of the conversation going forward. And Geelong now, one of the leaders in the community and in the AFL when it comes to including the Indigenous community around Geelong and the wider area. Also, growing up, I dealt with so much growing up in Geelong, and being other than the Watherong community, like being a predominantly white area, dealing with stuff on the footy field, like getting called a petrol sniffer and all this sort of stuff by 13, 14-year-old kids when we're playing footy. It's mind blowing. So now that I had a bit of a platform and I'm more educated and I know more about the history of what's happened, I know that, if I, who have a little bit of a profile, don't speak up about it, then there's going to be a whole nother generation who might have to deal with the stuff I went through. And my stuff wasn't even bad, because the stories I get told from my mum about what she had to deal with growing up in Darwin, a lot of Indigenous people up there, and having to deal with like the abuse and the racism and not being included in stuff, and having to sit in different areas. And then before her time, like my grandparents dealing with the stolen generation. And I guess the thing is that people don't understand that them stories, they get passed down. So just because it happened 60 or 70, 80 years ago doesn't mean I don't feel the pain of what my grandparents felt. Like, I carry that pain and I don't want stuff like that to happen again. So that's when I get the opportunity to speak in front of the government up here, or if I get the chance to speak in front of the footy club, or if I'm speaking to a group of 5 or 6 kids who don't know what might have happened or whatever, I'm going to take that opportunity to educate people, because it's a great culture. There's so much that it brings and it offers, and the songs and the stories, and like it's such a beautiful culture, and it's lasted for over 40,000 years for a reason. So yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about it and want to keep spreading the story and keep talking to people about it, because it's not celebrated enough, and it's probably frowned upon more than it's celebrated, which is so unfortunate because there's just so much good that it brings.
Yeah, I could not agree more, mate. I think it is honestly such a beautiful culture. And we've had a few Indigenous boys on this podcast. And like the one thing that I really do notice is that every time we ask that question, without fail, people light up and they love to talk about it. Like Cal Archie was another one, at Carl Amon, and like they love chatting about it. And I went to school with Jakey and and Don Barry, and I love chatting about this. And those boys taught me a lot about, Indigenous culture and where they were from. And Don Barry is now a spokesperson for the Indigenous culture, especially in South Australia. What moving forward, would you like to sort of really take a big responsibility in the community and be a real leader for your community? Because it sounds like you're going down that path.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard when I'm not on my land. So like I'm on Yagara land here around Brisbane. So it's hard for me to speak on behalf of them, but I try and integrate into that community as much as I can to sort of have their permission to speak about what's going on here and all that sort of stuff, just out of respect. I guess the big thing is for me is that I've learned a lot from a lot of different people, from a lot of different groups around Australia, and the more I hear, the more I want to speak about it. So yeah, you're definitely right. Whether it using my experience in addiction and with mental health and trying to help other black fellas to sort of pull themselves out of the hole, because there's not a lot of people who do that, unfortunately. Because unfortunately, in Indigenous culture, there's a lot of people who struggle with drugs and alcohol, and there's not a lot of people who want to help them. So, if I stay up in Queensland, that's the job I'll be doing. I'll be helping, people who haven't been employed for a while, trying to get them off Centrelink and that sort of stuff, which will, that's the direction I want to head in. So, yeah, it's something that means a lot to me. And yeah, I just don't want people to be embarrassed, because there's a lot of Indigenous people who are embarrassed about being Aboriginal, because they get the comments like, oh, how much Aboriginal are you? Like, you don't look Aboriginal, and then automatically like they're embarrassed about what their culture is. And I know I can't change everyone's opinion on that sort of stuff, but if I can have some sort of influence on 2 or 3 people to be more proud of what the people they are, then I've done my job, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, mate, you say it so well, and it's actually so fascinating to hear. And another thing that I wanted to ask, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but it's maybe a little bit too personal. But when we're talking about lived experience, it's not really something that people can understand unless they've actually lived that experience. And you talked before about, the inherited sort of pain that you feel from your parents and then your grandparents and the stolen generation. And that's something that I find particularly interesting, because whilst I've got a diverse family, from South Africa and Italy and lots of war and all that sort of stuff, I don't really have that sense of, pain. Can you sort of speak to the more egregious examples of things that have happened in your family tree or, distant family that really particularly resonate with you?
Yeah, so I guess the big ones. So my grandfather was taken really, really young and taken up to Garden Point, which is east of Darwin, to a camp. And he never knew where his family was from. So we don't know that part of our lives, like it's gone. So there's a whole line of family that I don't know, they could be in Alice Springs, they could be somewhere else. We just do not know. I guess the painful bit about it, and the bit we carry, is that, like, we're still here, and we still, there's a lot of things that go on, racial bias and stuff like that. And like, there's a lot of little things that go on that, people don't realize, the way you get looked at the shops, and people are like, oh, he's just looking at you. But, there's a look when someone's looking at you, and that look, you're like, he's not looking at me because, I'm just in here. He's looking at me because he's watching me do stuff. And, I've spoken to a few of the boys, and they've been told to, they grab something at the shop, and a shopkeeper would come up, oh, can you just put that at the front, mate, and come get it on the way out? But won't say that to anyone else in the shop. So, yeah, I think the stolen generation stuff, one, because there's not been a lot done around it. There hasn't been a lot of help to try and, go back and, help find, family trees and family lines and stuff like that. And Indigenous culture, like, it's all about storytelling. And so the whole time, all through time, Indigenous people just been telling each other stories, and instead of writing it down, you tell each other stuff, and it gets passed down and passed down. So when pain gets passed down through stories, the pain just goes with the story, and it comes with you. So it is, it's hard, and it's hard to think about, especially that time. But, it's important that we keep educating people about what actually happened. And, it's, my wife's a school teacher and has asked numerous times that can we talk about the stolen generation at school? And they're like, no, it's too confronting. It's too confronting. And then all of a sudden these kids never ever learn about it and think it's okay to tell jokes and stuff about it and it's not, and they've had the opportunity that they could have learnt about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it would definitely something. If you're talking about Australian history, that absolutely is something that has to be, like in the curriculum, no doubt whatsoever, because it's such a monumental part of the Indigenous story. Post Western civilization, obviously, but I did learn in school a little bit about things like when the Westerners settled in Australia, and they introduced food to the Indigenous culture, and obviously they were hunters and gatherers, so the food then made them sick, and the diseases made them sick, and the men couldn't hunt anymore, and then it made them depressed. And there was even some stories that I was hearing which still resonate with me today, that they practice infanticide, so they would actually kill their babies sometimes because they were so devastated about having their children live in this new world that they didn't understand whatsoever. So I think more education around that, and the things that you're talking about now, like when I'm listening, I'm 25 years old and I'm listening to this stuff, like, holy shit, like this is just not something that, I ever think about enough. So thanks heaps for sharing that with us, man.
That's all right. It's my pleasure. And if hopefully, one of your listeners, or even if it's just one of them, enlightens them a little bit, and they, jump onto Google and just read a bit of history about where they live, and the culture around where they live, then that's a step in the right direction.
And did you want to sort of speak about that stuff more on your podcast as well? Like have different sort of people from even government sectors, or as you were saying, social science sectors and stuff.
Yeah,
speak to these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So we obviously touch on the addiction and dealing with depression and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, we've had numerous Indigenous leaders, being musicians, politician, and just people with Indigenous backgrounds come on and talk about some of the stuff. And they're highly passionate, highly educated people. So if you want to jump onto ours after you listen to this one, and listen to a couple of the fellas, it's Jimmy Kyle episode and Scott Darlow episode, if you want to jump onto those and have a listen. And there's one called Growing Up Black, which is me talking about it. So
yeah. Well, tell everyone exactly where they can find you, and we'll put the link to your podcast in the description, and we'll help you, give you guys a shout out in our page. I doubt it'll do anything, but we'll do it anyway.
Right. I feel you, fellas. So you can find us ATTG podcast on Instagram, capital letters ATTG _podcast on Twitter. You can find our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, all of them. So we're just on there and just waking addicted to the game. I'm sure you'll find us.
Beautiful, mate. Well, I'm keen to have a listen, and unless Poncho's got anything, I'm very, very happy with that one.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, mate, personally, I actually learned a lot. I didn't know about the gambling, and thank you so much for enlightening us on that, but also the Indigenous stuff. I mean, we do hear a bit about it, but even just for myself, I took so much out of this that I never actually would have thought that I would have. So thank you so much for sharing, and I will take a listen to your podcast, and I really hope that a few other people do, because it is an important part of our culture in Australia.
Yeah, no, thank you, fellas, and thanks for reaching out and get me on. And if you do listen to our podcast, we apologise about the swearing. It can get a bit over the top sometimes. So
No, we love it.
We normally swear more. It's actually a bit disappointing that we haven't sworn enough in this podcast.
We should have told you.
All right, beauty. Well, thank you so much, Bundy. We'll appreciate you coming on, brother.
thanks, guys.